We are back. Big J, Little J Show. Couldn't get an episode last week. We had some Wi-Fi problems, and then one day Connor had to Newark early in the week. So luckily for us, Duke took care of business to where we can record a Final Four preview, or Duke heading to the Final Four as we recap the Arizona-Alabama game, give you a little preview to Houston. So we're happy to be back. Look, like I said, Duke beat Arizona 193 in what is known as the Ref Show, which I will talk about, and I'll get Connor's take on that as he was there as well. And then the most impressive Duke performance of the season, in my opinion, the 85-65 win against Alabama. We'll talk about that after we briefly recap Arizona. But first, I want to get Connor in here. Connor, how was Newark? Tell me how the vibes were for you, just, covering two games over the weekend.
Figure out how to put this respectfully. Don't know that I would recommend Newark as a vacation spot. Look, I'm never gonna bitch and complain about being in a place to cover this tournament. I certainly have nothing to complain about my seat for the two games. I don't know if you could have seen me on the TV, but I was right behind Duke's bench.
You were. I did. That is true. Shout out to Connor. I saw him during the broadcast, maybe even both games. I definitely saw you in the Alabama game. I was like, oh, I meant to take a picture to post on Twitter too. That there's
same seat both times.
Yeah.
Newark was fine. It was a little there was some jealousy setting in when you look across the tournament and see Indianapolis, Atlanta, San Francisco, all pretty decent spots in my opinion. I've never really been to Indianapolis, but then Newark is the other regional spot. It was all right though.
Well, let's talk about the first game, Connor.
Yeah, let's go into the game so I can quit beating around the bush of how shady of a town Newark is.
The first game, Arizona, Cooper Flagg, elite performance, 30 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks. That was the main takeaway from Duke's side of things, but the main takeaway for the game in general was, like I said, call it the Ref Show. If you've seen the film breakdown on Twitter, because YouTube blocked it, so that was not great that I could not post it up. March Madness copyright for audio, so I'm going to try and do a film breakdown of the Duke Alabama game with no audio, which is going to be weird, but it's going to be fine. So if you haven't seen it, it's on my Twitter, not YouTube. But 46 fouls in the game, Connor, and we witnessed together the first ever for me, a block and charge at the same time, and the double foul with Sion James and Del Orso. And let me just say, that is the dumbest call I know I've ever seen, because a block charge has been so controversial in the history of a block charge that you could call every block or charge a blarge, because it's always just a subjective call. Like, one official can see one side of things, the other can see the other, and it could always be a blarge. Like, that was the dumbest rule. It's one or the other, or you talk about it and you're like, you know what? Both of us indifferent, jump ball, give it the possession arrow. No way that made sense for it to be called a blarge.
My favorite one was they called an offensive foul on, I think, Gongba setting a screen, and went to the monitor to review it. And coming out of the review, they were going to have, I can't remember which Arizona big it was, or if it was a guard. They were going to have him shooting free throws. And Duke's entire bench area just went ballistic. Just like, how do you not know that an offensive foul just occurred? That's not a free throw situation. It's possession, but it's a turnover. It's not, they didn't call it a flagrant. They didn't change anything about the call that would have meant free throws. Yeah, I mean, look, Lee Cassell is a bad ref. Who were the other two on the game? I told you who they were.
You texted me. Let me look in our text exchange, because that helped me for my thumbnail that I could not post on Twitter. Keith Kimball and Michael Greenstein.
I don't remember thinking Keith Kimball made many of the calls that were shady, or not shady, but just bad calls. Greenstein is a West Coast guy that, or a Big 12 guy that, not the greatest.
Keith Kimball, I know you were there, so it's hard to see. He was bad. He was the one that called the block foul on Cooper Flagg late in the game when the Arizona guy dribbled off his foot. He called it right away before there was really any contact, and very minimal contact. And also, he was the one during the hook and hold for when Arizona hooked and hold Knipple. He looked at the replay, showed him looking at the whole thing happen from start to finish. Like he walked towards from the baseline, or he was on this in front of Arizona's bench. But when there was physicality down low, he started walking towards it and was staring at it as Knipple was getting dragged down. Cassell was on the baseline, but I did this on the film breakdown. That's why I know it's just deep in my brain right now. Cassell was watching the ball. He never saw it. He was the closest one to the action, but was looking elsewhere, whereas Kimball was watching it happen and just swallowed his whistle. The one time all game he swallowed his whistle is watching Cooper Flagg get shoved in the back and then Knipple get dragged down, and they let it play out, and it led to a 3-point tic-tac and one dunk for Arizona. And I'm just like, what? You're calling everything tight. Why are you letting this happen? And I know I said this was an officiating game or the ref show, and what people may not understand why I'm so irritated is because the first 5 minutes were great basketball. There was one foul total in the game in the first 5 minutes and 45 fouls in the next 35 minutes. I don't know what changed.
I can tell you based on where I was sitting and based on who was sitting behind me, without naming any specific Duke luminaries. I mean, that was the Duke section. More so on Saturday night, it was really funny and great to listen to everything that Mama Flagg had to say. And we can get into that in a few minutes. But I can tell you the Duke section behind me was very adamant about they were reffing the score and not the game. And they were trying to keep things close and interesting. And I'm probably a little jaded because I can hear that. And it even if you can tune that stuff out and not agree with it, you still hear it and you still get influenced by it. It did feel like that to an extent.
Go into it. Let me tell me what you heard, because my next follow-up was, Connor, how did the energy feel towards the officiating in the building? Could you feel irritation from the crowd or the Duke player staff, since you're that close, of like they're throwing their arms up because they're calling something like Knipple had back-to-back fouls where there was very minimal contact, especially the second one to start the second half?
So the feelings of fans and even some of like the Duke analysts that are a row behind the Duke bench, that energy is completely different than the coaches on Duke's bench, like Shire, Dildy, Carrawell, J-Rob, Will Avery, to name the whole staff there that's sitting there, and the players. Everything about the way Duke's staff and players react is next play. And it's kind of one of the main reasons why they're in the frickin' Final Four, right? Like, they don't get emotional during these games. They don't get hung up on certain shit. That's why they're 35-3 and 2 wins away from a national championship.
Yeah.
I was particularly impressed, and I was trying to kind of hone in on what was being said. I think John has made it a point to not show emotion, because when John shows emotion, that emotion bleeds into the rest of his team. So if he reacts, like if he pulls I'm going to throw it back in the time machine here a little bit. If he pulls a Jim Boeheim and runs down Duke's bench, he doesn't have a suit to tear off because nobody has suits to tear off anymore. But if he does that, it's going to negatively affect his team. If he stays cool, calm, and collected, even if he does think that his team is getting shafted, his team is more likely to stay cool, calm, and collected. And that was one of my main takeaways from being there for 2 games, watching 80 minutes of John up close, coaching both during the game and during huddles. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got a direct sight line. It's kind of weird. I was like trying not to make eye contact with John. It's not like I want him to see me just staring into his huddle as if I'm trying to pick up exactly what he's saying and what he's doing. I want to do that, but I don't want to make it obvious that I'm doing it. But yeah, it was a good vantage point. I don't know where else I wanted to go with that.
Well, look, I mean, that's the key, though. Like you said, I mean, Duke. People can say what they want about Duke and the teams they played or what they think Duke has not battled in terms of adversity. But in the last 2 weeks, from the AC tournament to in the NCAA tournament, Duke's battled adversity with giving up a big, almost 20-point lead. We saw it against UNC in the ACC tournament, and now you saw it against Arizona. So, like, this team's been tested. Like, they have been tested, and obviously Cooper Flagg was out for the UNC game, but it still remains the same, where, like, questionable calls during a blowout start feeding into the opposition, chipping away at the lead. Better for worse, like, it is what it is. That happened both games, and Duke still came out strong. I mean, this is a game where a team would lose. Like, when you hear this is the first time all year a team's done this and it's a bad thing, that team normally loses in March. That's what makes March madness. And Duke giving up 93 points where they haven't given up over 78 all year, that's how you lose. That's a stat where you'd be like, oh, that Duke lost this game because they've never given up more than 77 points in a game this season. Oh, they give up 93. That's why they lost to Arizona. Duke won. And that was an outlier to what's been set this whole year on this defense. And that's the most frustrating part was if Duke was going to blow this game, they weren't allowed to guard. They weren't allowed to be the best defensive team in the country because if Arizona was driving to the rim, it was almost a guaranteed foul. Where I thought like Shire might have had to go zone because it's like, hey, we're not trying to foul them. Yes, we're going to give up threes, but I'd rather see Arizona put up a shot than them not, and the clock stops and they shoot 2 free throws. Luckily, Duke pulled it out. But before we go to the Alabama game, I just want to close with the Duke-Arizona game. Caleb Love, he's been a thorn in Duke's fan sides. Obviously, the shot against Duke in the Final Four, but he had 35 points on tough shots, and Duke officially is done with him. Duke beats Caleb Love, but that shot he shot in the corner where he should have shot the first one, pump fake, sidestep 3, and in Tyrese Proctor's face, down 17 points. Like, it was such a bad shot with like 24 seconds on the shot clock, hits bottom of the net. And I'm like, great. I knew from that 17-point lead to a 14-point lead and how tough that shot was. I was like, oh boy, he is going to get hot or stay hot. And look, he had an interesting career because he's always been a shot chucker all 4 years. Never shot it well efficiency-wise all 5 years. Thank you, Connor. But he had 35, and he just would not die. And shout out to Common Malawach for healing some Duke fans, blocking Caleb Love's 3-point attempt in the same spot as the same spot where he shot and made the 3 against Mark Williams in the Final Four. Malawach had the switch. Caleb Love against a Duke 7-footer, but this time Malawach gets a paw on it. It was a 6-point lead, and I feel like that ball got past Malawach. That ball is going in. So a massive play. I think that was the play of the game, Connor, was Malawach's block against Caleb Love in the same spot where he hit the 3 against Mark Williams.
Probably the play of the game. I can't remember if it was the next possession or the previous possession where Kaman had great post defense and walled up, and whoever was down there trying to score couldn't get around him.
That was later. That was either the next possession. It was later because that was, you could say either one was play of the game, but yes, that was when Cooper Flagg got caught backdoor. Cooper Flagg recovered a little bit. They dumped it down to Vassar, I think it was, and he tried to head fake 3 times against Malawach, and Malawach just kind of pushed him away from the rim, missed the shot, and got the rebound. And those 2 were the plays of the game for Duke, but they're both Common Malawach.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would just double down on your Caleb Love takes. like I've been upfront about how much I do not enjoy watching him play basketball, because I think he's talented and I think his game could be so much better than it is. But man, he is one of the best tough shot makers I think I've seen. And the crazy thing is, RJ Davis, I would say the exact same thing about. Like, both of those guys, they're two of the best tough shot makers I've seen at the college level. And they played together for 3 years, obviously. It just, more than anything, it was like I don't know. It wasn't a perfect ending. It's not like, I don't know.
It was the perfect ending in the fact for moments. For a Duke fan, it was a perfect ending because you think of the 2022 Final Four, made 3, eliminate Arizona in the Sweet 16, same shot, same location, blocked. And again, this is Duke against Caleb Love. I'm going to go on a fan tangent here. Like, this has nothing to do with UNC. Like, I keep seeing people kept seeing people in the moment, UNC fans talking about, like, why is Duke so worried about Caleb Love? It's like, well, Duke's worried about Caleb Love because he hurt us tremendously in the 2022 Final Four, and he's the villain for our 2022. He's the villain for 2025, and Duke blocked it. Not that Duke's obsessed with UNC and it's a rivalry between that. It's Caleb Love and Duke. That is the rivalry that will forever be known because he hit the shot, and he'll always have a fascinating career to me because he'll average like 16 or 17 points per game in his 5 years. Like, damn, this kid can shoot it. Well, as much as that shot was meaningful for UNC and the Duke-UNC rivalry that took him to the national championship, they then blew the biggest lead at halftime in NCAA championship game history because Caleb Love shot like 5 of 20 and Kansas came back from that double-digit deficit. UNC is now number 1 team. The following year, he shoots a career low, like 29% from the field, and gets pushed out because UNC wants RJ Davis. And then he becomes Pac-12 Player of the Year for Arizona. But Arizona fans still have the love-hate relationship with Caleb Love as UNC fans did. Yes, he was Pac-12 Player of the Year his first year at Arizona, but he lost Arizona games the way he shot, and then he'll keep you in games with the way he shot in the Duke game. So he's always going to be the most interesting college basketball player to me because when you see him like against Duke in the Sweet 16, when he's on like that, like you said, it's fascinating to watch if you're a hoop fan. But when he's off, it is some ugly basketball.
I guess the one area that I wanted to go to that I was kind of stammering around was I was impressed with his maturity last week.
Yeah.
The Wednesday interviews going into the Thursday night game, a lot of people tried. I don't know if CBS had any success and if they showed any type of volatile stuff during his interviews with TV people, but when he was on the podium with media, a few people tried to get him to go into like, oh, you're playing Duke again. What's this about? He didn't take it. And it was even the one question that really stood out was somebody asked him, like, what do you remember about the shot? The shot that, beat Duke in the Final Four. And he's just like, I made the shot. It has no relevance 3 years later on this game we're about to play. I'm at a different school. I just, for a guy that I think sometimes has shown some immaturity in his career, certainly has shown immaturity in his game. That was impressive to me that he didn't want to take it to that place, that he wanted to make it all about his relationship with his Arizona teammates, about going into a game possibly in what wound up being for the last time in his college career. And it did dawn on me, and it kind of something to just kind of reflect on. Like, Tyler Hansbrough saying if Arizona wins, Caleb Love's jersey should be in the rafters. I guess Tyler can be forgiven for not knowing the stringent rules that Carolina has for getting your jersey up there or not. So many Carolina fans pulling their asses off for Arizona. Caleb Love said something in a post game on Thursday night in his press conference after the game. He didn't even mention Carolina by name. He just referred to them as the other school.
Oh wow, I did not know that. That's that's crazy. But
Like,
look,
everything about last week was Caleb Love wanting to separate himself from his part in the Duke Carolina game. It was more about Caleb Love with Arizona against Duke.
well, maybe the other school was Michigan.
That's a deep cut.
But look, shout out to Duke advancing to the Elite Eight, and now we'll go into the Alabama recap, Connor, where, like I said from the top, Duke never trailed in this game. 85-65. Nate Oates had that tweet where they played more top 25 teams the last 7 games than the ACC did combined in the regular season. And look, congrats. Duke shouldn't even played the game, I guess, because Alabama was so prepared for a team like Duke, especially coming off a game where they set the 3-point record. Most threes made in an NCAA game, 25 for 3 against BYU. And look, Duke, to me, coming into this game, you got a team that could do no wrong. And Duke, arguably, like I said, felt like they could do no right with the way the game was called against Arizona. They were battle tested at least against Arizona, where you knew there was going to be improvement for Duke. One of the best defenses in the country, gave up 93 points. I had a good feeling it wasn't going to happen again. Mark Sears had 34 on 10 of 16 from 3. And he was my main focal point in this game for Duke to stop. And I called him the head of the snake. You got to kill the head of the snake. He was 2 of 12 with 5 turnovers. And Shire said in an interview post-game that, look, he knew Alabama loved to shoot threes, but there were 3 main guys that Duke was concerned about. And it was Mark Sears, Chris Youngblood, and Aiden Holloway. Against BYU, those 3 combined for 76 points on 21 made threes. And against Duke, those 3 combined for 21 points on 3 of 16 from 3. So Shire knows his shit, because you kill those 3, at least you kill Mark Sears, and then if those other 2 went off, so be it. But for those 3 guys to have back-to-back performances of 76 points on 21 made threes and 21 points on 3 of 16 threes, just shows you how good this Duke defense is at guarding.
Also, Emmanuel Dildy knows his shit because he had the scout, and I'm sure Shire got that information from Dildy at some point or another. And I corrected Tyrese Proctor when I didn't need to. Tyrese was saying something about he thought those 3 had 21 threes, and I was like, oh, they had 25, because I was just thinking he was talking about the whole team in the locker room after the game. I mean, look, the funny part of this game to me was the in-game adjustments. So Duke comes out and makes their first 3 threes, and I think they were 4 of 5. And then got their 5th 3 late in the first half. And Alabama clearly took away the 3-point shot. They stretched their defense out. Duke is more than happy to say, okay, we're going to go score in your paint. And Duke puts up 85 points, only making 6 threes. The 6th one came with 68 seconds left in the game and was the most unnecessary 3 Duke has hit all year. I mean, Tyrese Proctor hitting out
Well, shout out to Tyrese Proctor, by the way, since you just talked about it. What a redemption story for him. 0 points, 0 of 9 from the field last Elite Eight, 17 points in this game. And so I know that 3 was meaningless for the score count, but I did think it was really cool that he was the guy to hit the nail in the coffin 3 to really put the game away after what happened last year in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, that's one of the many stories I need to get to this week going into San Antonio, because I was there in the locker room, obviously, in Dallas last year, and he spent about 30 minutes in the corner of that locker room with a towel over his head. He did not talk to anybody after the game, at least as far as I know. He did not talk to any media after that game. He was just inconsolable. So obviously a lot happier this week.
Yeah.
So Duke comes out and hits open threes. Alabama adjusts. Duke says, all right, we're just going to go score in your paint because we have Con Knipple, who's a 3-level scorer. We have lob anywhere close to the rim, and Kaman Malawach is going to go get it and flush it. Cooper Flagg had a pretty bad game. I thought his best possession was Duke's first possession where he just hit the standstill three. Other
We're
than
going to
that,
get into that. We'll get
he
into that.
slugged his way to a 17-point game. And he came off the court saying to teammates, like, I played like shit. I have so much more in the tank. He also had his mother screaming at him, Cooper, shoot the effing ball.
She also said that Duke posted when they were showing the celebratory, like players hugging their parents. She said, "Take care of the ball or stop turning the ball over." And he said, "I'm trying."
It's a shame her name's Kelly and not Jennifer. I'm trying, Jennifer.
Yeah, that's a great pull as well, Connor.
I've made that reference a few times this week. So that was Duke's offense. The defensive adjustment, Duke comes out and correct, like, the ball screen coverage is better than I do. But for the first 8 to 10 minutes, it looked like Duke was playing some drop and trying to keep things in front of them. And then Aiden Sherrill comes out and bangs 2 threes. And it's like, well, shit, we can't let them get going. So Duke started switching everything.
Yeah, so they did do drop, and they're aggressive going over everything. And then they did a little bit of kind of the similar thing. But what really stood out to me was after you said Sherrill was the guy that hit the back-to-back threes.
He's their big freshman center.
Isaiah did a good job when he was in his first stint in the first half, to where there was a play where, again, it seemed like Duke got caught in drop. And so what happened was he was open again at top of the key, and I think Gongbo was still on the floor. But Slim went from guarding his guy in the wing to showing really hard to Sherrill and then jumping back to his guy to ruin the momentum if he was going to shoot it. So he hesitated and then swung it. And so Duke did switch, but they were still in some drop. And when they were in drop, they were in heavy help, to where if he caught at the top of the key or a big did that's capable of shooting a three, just keep him honest by showing yourself as a help side defender, because it's going to make him think about it. And so that also took him out of rhythm after he made his first couple of threes. So shout out to Slim, because there was one possession I'm going to have, I hope I can put it on my film breakdown, that Duke really messed them up in the flow of their offense because of the aggressive help.
Yeah, that happened right in front of me. I remember that one. Man, like I put this on Twitter. I'm not trying to take anything away from John when I say this, but you have 3 seasons as a coach, and 2 of them you have a 7-foot freshman center who's able to switch on to guards and not give up blow-bys and not be tripping over his own feet and give up step-back threes. It makes coaching a whole lot easier. It makes your defense so much better. And Derek Lively, I've said it so many times, I thought he was the best defensive player in the country by the end of his freshman season. Kamen Malawach might not be the best defensive player on this team. Cooper Flagg's still pretty damn good. Tyrese Proctor is really good. It's a team full of plus defenders, at least when you talk about the starting lineup, and when you talk about bringing Malik Brown off the bench with 1.5 shoulders.
I was going to say, and the guy that led the ACC in steals is your backup center. So it's like, led the ACC a year ago in steals. And so, but to go off Malawach, I tweeted it. I think it's the best performance of his career.
I thought he was Duke's best player in that game.
He was. This was only the second game this season where he played more than 30 minutes. He played 31 minutes. He had 32 against Notre Dame. I think he had like 27 in the game where he lost 15 pounds due to vomit. So
I was going to bring that up.
So he played 31 minutes on the second game in 3 days. Like, it wasn't like it was the Arizona game where he had a week to play 31 minutes. He was playing high level leverage minutes in the Arizona game.
And that was the other part, was the game where he left everything on the court, was the Monday night after they played Saturday. They played at Wake Forest, and then they played NC State at home. And it was the NC State game that he put it all out there.
Yeah, he had 14 and 9 in this game with 2 blocks, and Alabama missed 17 twos. Like, they shot like 44% and 2-pointers. I know a couple were mid-range, but most were around the rim where there are layups. I know Sears was like 1 of 7 from 2, and the only 2 he hit was a mid-range shot. And also Alabama missed at least 2 dunks where Malawach contested it. Where there was one in the first half and one in the second half where it looked like they had a clear lane. the big for Alabama, try to dunk it with his left hand and go back iron because Malawach contested it. And so he just was the Slim Reaper, like just in the nightmares of Alabama. But he had a great game. I tweeted it, and I want to go back, Connor, or if you have anything else about Malawach before I go back to Cooper Flagg.
No, I was more going to add that I still think if Duke is going to lose a game, it's probably going to be in a similar fashion to the only game they've lost since Thanksgiving, and that was the Clemson game. And Clemson was only 4 for 10 on threes. Like, they had a team full of shooters, but they outmuscled Duke on the inside and shot like 63, over 60% on 2-pointers. And it was the Carolina game in the ACC tournament. They gave up 60% on twos to Illinois, but that didn't really matter because Illinois was 2 for 26 shooting threes. And it just like you can track the numbers on KenPom to the end of days. The number that I honed in on the preview and I was really kind of proud of, with giving you an idea of how the game was going to play out. 77% of Alabama's shots against BYU were threes.
Correct.
Like, even with Nate Oates and their approach being threes or layups, anything else is bad, is just not a good analytical shot in basketball. 77% was still the highest in like 207 games with Nate Oates at Alabama. That was an outlier game because of the way BYU played. And BYU basically walked out there and said, if you want to shoot 53s, you're going to shoot 53s, and we're banking on you not making almost 50% of them. They made 50% of them and beat them. Duke was never going to allow Alabama to take target practice in the same way. Correct. Their defense is too good. They have too much length, and they're too athletic to let that happen. So they just funneled Alabama to try to take layups. And if you're funneling things to try to take layups against a team that has Malawach and Flagg on the inside, that's going to work out for Duke more often than not. And it has. I mean, we're 38 games into this thing. I think we know how Duke plays.
I want to talk about this for a second because I'm glad you brought this up. I think Nate Oates is a good coach. His system is, look, for analytics and for screenshots of shot charts, and you're like, oh, look how beautiful this looks, threes and everything in the paint. That's great and all. But mid-range is a unique skill that needs to happen. And like him saying no to mid-range, I get what he's saying, that you don't want to shoot. If I shoot 10 twos, you don't want 5 of them to be mid-range. I get it. But 3 of them should be, because that's what makes Cooper Flagg so special, is his ability to hit the 3 and then drive. And you know he's going to try and finish around the rim. But when he stops on a dime and pulls up and the defender keeps going because he thinks he's going to the rim and he hits the mid-range, that's what makes him special. Like I said, Sears' first bucket of the whole game was a pull-up mid-range because Duke thought he was going to the rim. He was 1 of 7 from 2. The one he made was a mid-range. And Duke, Alabama lost to 5 seed San Diego State when Alabama was a 1 seed, because all San Diego State did was go over ball screens and funnel Alabama to Mensah in the paint for San Diego State, and they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle an aggressive big that would not foul because he jumped vertical. And Alabama shot 3 of 27 from 3 that game because they had to shoot tough ones. They had to shoot tough ones against Duke. And I don't understand. I get it to a sense that, like, you want to take mid-range out a little bit, but to keep a defense honest, just watch Cooper Flagg and Duke. Duke does the same philosophy for the most part of, hey, threes or layups. But you name a guy on Duke's team, Tyrese Proctor, how many times have we seen him stop at the free throw line and hit a tough pull-up that created separation? And then
but now Tyrese actually gets to the rim and finishes.
He does, but he hit a free throw line jumper, and
he had a few.
And then Knipple, we see him with the low post mid range, and we knew Roach. That's what he was at Duke too. Like, when there's timely mid range, it's a great shot. And Nate Oates, like, no mid range. He had Brandon Miller, and Brandon Miller's rookie year for the Hornets, he was unbelievable in the mid-range. And now, like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you're never going to win a championship when it's threes or layups, because at the end of the day, you're going to run into a juggernaut team in March Madness that has long athletic defenders around the rim where your guards cannot finish. So they have to settle for a mid-range on occasion. And so that's my tangent, that mid-range is not as bad a shot that people think. It's not like it needs to be a part of the game, not to the extent of be aggressive, but you know what I mean. Keep you on your toes defensively.
See, my only add-on to that would be I think mid-range is not as bad of a shot as the analytics guys make it out to be. I just think there has to be an understanding of having the right guys take mid-range jumpers.
Correct.
Like I wrote a lot more about that on the Wake Forest side of things because of Hunter Salas and how good of a 3-level scorer he was, or really just a 2-level scorer because Wake couldn't shoot threes all year. But like Cooper Flagg taking a mid-range jumper, nobody's blocking his shot. He's 6'9" and he elevates. Hunter Salas is 6'4", but he elevates. He's an explosive athlete and he gets up 8 feet from the rim. Nobody's blocking that thing.
I love Sion James, but Sion James does not need to shoot a pull-up too. He needs to get a catch and shoot 3 or to the rim.
No,
Proctor,
he's a set shooter.
Proctor is the one that you want to shoot off the dribble, not Caleb Foster. Like, there is a pick your poison type of guy, and that needs to be implemented in their games. And that's why Proctor is Proctor. When he gets hot, he is beautiful to watch because you can't stop him, because he's going to shoot the mid-range, he's going to shoot the 3, and now, like you said, he's going to finish around the rim more consistently.
Yeah, and this all goes into know your game and know your personnel and know yourself. Like,
yeah,
these guys know that those are the shots that they need to take.
The last thing I want to talk about, or one of the last things I want to talk about in this game, Connor, is the most impressive stat in this game that I feel like nobody's talking about for Duke's offensively. Duke shot 54% from the field, which is, great. But that includes Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg shooting 12 of 31 combined. So Duke shot 54% as a team. It seems like they got everything easy. And the two best players shot 12 of 31 for 39%. And they scored 85 points. Like you just talked about at the top of talking about Alabama, Flagg did not have his best performance. It was probably his worst. I know he had like 6 or 8 points against Incarnate Word, but you're being passive against, a low-tier competition. But he started the game with a couple of turnovers. He had 3 turnovers early in the first half, forced the issue early offensively or throughout the game offensively, and he got lost a couple of times defensively. But in his defense, I think we got to talk about, like, he's dealing with that ankle injury still. And as much as we talk about Kama Malawach having, a good performance in day 3 after, or 2 games in 3 days, he was high level. Like, he carried Duke against Arizona. He as in Cooper Flagg, and he had 30 points in 37 minutes, and he came back probably still with a sore ankle 2 days later and played 36 minutes. And yes, he struggled, but that ankle had to at least be bothering him a little bit because how much high leverage basketball he was playing against Arizona, because it felt like every possession he was involved for Duke in the Arizona game. And look, he also hit one of the biggest shots of the game for Duke against Alabama. It was a little lucky, but that was when Alabama cut it to 7 or 6. And it felt like in the second half, they felt like they were going to have it. Duke was trying to milk the clock a little bit. And he had Sears on the right baseline, and he just shot a runner over Sears with 4 seconds left on the shot clock to put the lead back to 8 or 9. And once that shot went in, Duke got a stop and got it back to double digits. So he did hit a big bucket when it mattered most. And he also had an impressive block, and Grant Nelson also had an impressive block on him. But to give perspective with Cooper Flagg, I will give him a benefit of the doubt because it's the second game in 3 days for a guy that suffered a pretty severe ankle injury about a week and a half ago.
That was the bucket at, if you can't tell.
Yellow notepad.
I hadn't even unpacked my work bag. Well, I've unpacked some things, but not the yellow pads. That was one with about 7.5 left.
Yeah, it was when Alabama was making that little run.
Yeah, they were on a 8-2 run.
Yeah.
That Cooper Flagg bucket started Duke's 39th kill shot of the season.
Look at me. No one balled, Connor.
That was I think it was 13-0. But yeah, 39 kill shots in 38 games. They've still only given up 7, I think it is. And 39 is the most in the country. This is all tracked through Evan Maya. I need to go back. God, There's so many things I want to do. There's not enough time to do them all.
I feel that. Trust me, I feel that.
But I've been phrasing it this way: every tournament game that Duke has played. So ACC tournament.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you went dark. There you are.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Every tournament game Duke has played. So 3 in the ACC tournament, 4 in the NCAA tournament so far. Duke has had 1 kill shot and has not given up one. So I think it's off the top of my head again. I think they've had 9 kill shots in 7 tournament games and 0 allowed. I think they had 2 in that ACC tournament against Georgia Tech, and then they had 2 against Arizona, I believe, in the first half.
Jeez. Well,
or it might have been the Baylor game that they had 2. It was the Baylor game, yeah. Building up the 47-30 halftime lead.
Well, that goes into what we're going to finish with, Connor. The Duke Houston little preview. I still need to watch some more film on Houston. Look, breaking news: Houston's really good as a number 1 seed. They just bullied Tennessee in their Elite 8 win, made it living hell for Tennessee. And this Houston team's unbelievable. They are second best team in Ken Palm, right behind Duke. Number 1 defense, I think 10th offensively, if I'm not mistaken. That I saw that. And
yep.
Their last loss was February 1st to Texas Tech in a 1-point loss in overtime. So this team, tell me again, Connor, if you have it up, about their losses and how much they've lost by.
Yeah. So they have a record that's 1 game worse than Duke. They're 34-4. Of the 4 losses, 3 of them are in overtime. And 3 of their 4 losses, also one of the ones isn't an overtime game. 3 of their 4 losses are to teams that were 3 seeds or better. So they lost to Auburn on a neutral court in the second game of the season. They lost in overtime to Alabama, which was a 2 seed. And they lost to Texas Tech in overtime by 1, and Texas Tech was a 3 seed. I get the consternation about all 4 number 1 seeds makes it seem like it's boring. I love when all 4 1 seeds make it because it means that the best team is going to win.
Yeah.
Like you don't have flukish matchups where somebody is beating somebody that they're the less talented team is winning, but they have this matchup that they're able to exploit. Like whoever the national champion is in San Antonio this week is going to be able to say they are the best team in the country. You can't say that about every season.
You don't want this to be UConn's, Dan Hurley's first year where he won a national championship, where it's 1 seed UConn, 5 seed Miami, 5 seed San Diego State.
They were a 4 seed.
4 seed, and then 8 seed FAU.
Yeah.
Like that was the Final Four. And people rightfully so complained about like having higher seeds in the Final Four at the time. That was like, hey, this is not what March Madness should be. It should be the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds. Now I see people trying to spin it around the block like March Madness was more fun when it was a screenshot of that Final Four. And I'm like, no, it's not, because everybody knew UConn was going to win. Like those other 3 teams, they had big flaws. That's why they were higher seeds. They got exposed when they played UConn.
Give me the Final Four like we have this year and like we had in 22, where there were 4 blue bloods with Duke, Carolina, Villanova, and Kansas.
Yeah.
Give me these Final Fours. I mean, maybe if you throw an underdog in there, I won't be upset. If you throw some 6 seed that gets hot in there, but yeah.
Even when Duke played UNC in the Final Four, I think it was the year, like UNC played St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. And it's like, are you kidding me? Maybe it was Elite 8. One of the 2.
It was the Elite 8 because I think they knocked off Purdue in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like UNC is not going to get tested until they play Duke, and Duke got somewhat tested going into the UNC game. And again, I'm not taking anything away from UNC, but they had the Baylor game where they almost choked the 24-point lead or whatever when Manick got ejected. But my point being, nobody wants to see a double-digit seed make it past the first weekend or maybe early second weekend. As Connor's struggling with allergies over here.
It's crazy. I was telling Jordan before we came on, it was like I didn't feel any of it when I was in Newark, and then driving back on Sunday, it was just like the further south I got, the more frequent the sneezes that like sent my whole body into vibration got. And now I've woken up and it's like, oh, right. Yep. We'll see if this year is a Claritin or Zyrtec or something else year where I'm taking one of them every morning.
Well, look, I want to go back, Connor, to Texas Tech. I was looking at the loss to Texas Tech, to Houston's loss to Alabama early in the year. They lost to Alabama 85-80. So I'm going to watch that film this week to get a better idea of how to play Houston. I'm sure Duke is too. I know it was very early in the year, but at the end of the day, it's a familiar opponent that Duke just played Alabama. And what did they do to eliminate Houston in that loss? Again, it was a 5-point loss in overtime, but LJ Cryer, who is the leading scorer for Houston, shot 9 of 26 from the field. So again, this is great deep dive analysis here, Connor, but the way Duke will win this game if you make LJ Cryer shoot inefficiently like Duke made Mark Sear shoot inefficiently.
I'll tell you this right now. The main thing that jumps off the page on their KenPom team sheet here is they're 39.7% on three-pointers. That's third in the country. That's ridiculously high. Their 2-point percentage is 48.4, which is 282nd in the country.
Yeah, that's never good. But their tallest guy's like 6'8", so it makes sense. I think the tallest guy's technically 6'9", but he didn't play last game.
It is clear, like you can never carbon copy a game plan from one to the next, but what Duke did to Alabama to funnel them into the paint and get them off the three-point line is exactly what Duke is going to want to do against Houston to keep them under, 60 or 70 points.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll close with my key of the game. My key of the game for Duke is no second chance points. This team is undersized in terms of Duke's height. Like I said, the tallest guy's like 6'8", maybe 6'9", but they crashed the glass. They're Kelvin Sampson team. They played their asses off. They crashed the glass. You can't give up offensive rebounds because they're going to lead to dagger threes for a team that's third in the country in three-point percentage. You give up
they're 11th in the country in offensive rebounds.
Yeah, you give up those offensive rebounds to a team that loves to kick it out for a three to any guy that shoots. I think their top three scorers are shooting like 40% from three. I have it right here. Yeah, 42% LJ Cryer, 41.5% Emmanuel Sharp, and Uzan is 45%. So either of those three guys catch and shoot on an offensive rebound, that's how you lose the game. So Duke's going to have to collectively, all five guys crash, and hopefully the refs call the game like they did the Alabama game. I thought there was a good flow in the game. Not really any complaints from me on that end because they let some physicality go on both ends. I thought Duke got bumped a couple of times against Alabama, but you know what? I like when they swallow a whistle and let talent play talent. So I'm hoping for the same in the Duke-Houston game and not like a whistle in the Duke-Arizona game.
You don't want to tell me that Roger Ayers is Satan?
No, I don't really hate Roger Ayers as most people do, but maybe that's because I'm a little biased because he knows my buddy's dad. They ref together in Virginia high school back in the day.
Like, this is not going to make me popular among our listeners, but Roger Ayers is the best ref in the ACC.
He's way better than Lee Cassell, and then whatever the dude's name is that stopped doing NBA games because they sniffed out that he had a burner account on Twitter and he was a closeted Celtics fan, that he was tweeting about Celtics and he would referee Celtics games. Now he's refereeing the ACC.
Yeah, you notice he might have been on some first weekend games, but he was not in the pool for this week.
Yeah, and give me Roger Ayers over Ted Valentine.
Yeah,
it's just even your dog agrees. It's Roger Ayers over Ted Valentine. So see, I just say the name Roger Ayers, and there we go.
Bo is not a fan of Ted Valentine.
Yeah, well, nobody is except for Ted Valentine. He's the biggest fan of Ted Valentine.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely true.
Connor, we'll close with this. Give me your key to the game, and we'll get out of here. Uh-oh, he's not ready.
I'm not. I've not dove into the numbers the way I need to.
Okay, well, we can hold
it's
on.
also
Check
it's
out
also a
Connor's.
Saturday game. Here,
Well,
I'll give you this one.
Okay.
It is in a football stadium, and that brings in the question of depth perception behind, shooting with big ass open space, both on the sides of the court and behind the baskets. If I'm not mistaken, it's Duke's first time this season playing in a football stadium. Houston just played in one, but it was a little different. As it was explained to me, I didn't know this until a few days ago, but Houston was in Indy and playing in the Colts Stadium, but when they do regional games there and not the Final Four, they flush it over to one end zone. So it's kind of like Syracuse does it with the Carrier Dome. Like when Syracuse plays in the Carrier Dome, they're not playing at midfield of the football stadium. They flush it all the way down to one end.
Yeah.
That's what they do in Lucas Oil when it's Sweet 16 Elite 8, or if they have first round games there. If it was the Final Four in Lucas Oil, that's when they play at midcourt so that the NCAA can get 70,000 people in there and everybody can pay $3,000 a ticket. But
if you want Connor's keys to the game, check out his game preview that he'll have later this week on Devils Illustrated. Look at that plug. We just need a sponsorship now. We can close with that. But check out his game preview on Devils Illustrated. And also, last thing we'll talk about, or last thing I want to say before we sign off, if John Shire wins this game, he'll have the most wins of any coach ever in his first 3 years at a school. So that's pretty impressive. He's tied for first right now with 89 wins. He wins against Houston. That'll make 90 in 3 years.
It's pretty remarkable that John went and won an ACC championship his first season, went to the Elite Eight in his second season, and the job that has been done with this team is so much better than his first 2 years. This team is that much better. And it's not like he had dog shit teams running out there. They obviously did a lot of good things and won a lot of games. But man, this team has been different. And as he's told us since September, basically, that this team is special.
Yeah, I mean, look, last year, that team, looking back, though, it was a great coaching job last year, making that team go to the Elite Eight. It was a flawed roster. It was a flawed roster. Elite Eight. Roach obviously struggled at Baylor. Sean Stewart, still a role player. TJ Powers in the portal again. Mark Mitchell's played better. He's played the same at Missouri and a chaotic type of offense and flow, which is what he needs to be in. And then Phil Palski was a 4 playing the 5. All that Duke really had was Jared McCain being lights out shooter for the last 2 months of the year. But that team making the Elite Eight, hindsight 2020, is pretty impressive with the roster turnover because it wasn't to the standard that Shire needed and wanted to win a championship.
Clearly, if you're using what guys did this year as examples of what last year's team could have or should have done, Jalen Blake should have been playing 28 minutes a game.
That's a good point. But Connor, look, I appreciate it as always, man. We'll see you guys in the next episode after the Final Four. It'll be tough to squeeze one in if Duke wins Final Four national championship. So we'll see you guys in the near future, just to be determined if it's after the Final Four or if it's after the national championship. So Connor, I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, bud.